Good afternoon, folks, and thanks for joining us. My name is Tim Wheaton, and I'm joined as always by Frazer Crone. We are the MMA Sucka crew, and today we are doing a UFC post-show for the Charles Oliveira versus Dustin Poirier, and we also had Julianna Pena defeat Amanda Nunes, the insane UFC 269. Frazer, how are you doing today, sir?
Yeah, there was just talking off air now. It's such a big card, and it's Oliveira and Poirier could have gone either way going into the fight, and then in the fight it could have gone either way. And I don't think I've got to hold my hands up, and I think you're going to hold your hands up as well. That we didn't give Julianna Pena any chance going in, and you can watch the podcast from last week. She was 1-1 going into the fight, and she pulled off the big upset victory. So fair play. I'm ready to eat humble pie. So.
Well, yeah, and the Julianna Pena, I know we're kicking off with it because that's what everybody wants us. Everybody wants us to cover just how insane that was. I didn't even watch tape on her. I wasn't looking for anything with it. I picked Amanda Nunes because we pick Amanda Nunes, but Julianna Pena overcame. She got outstruck in the first round. She got out wrestled in the first round as well. She followed up in the second round where Amanda Nunes was falling apart. And one of the insane things about Julianna Pena was that if she were to win this fight, I never would have picked stand and bang, stand and brawl with Amanda Nunes. And that's exactly what she did. Clearly, Amanda Nunes was a little bit tired is the right word, but she was exhausted in the second round and she couldn't defend the jab at all. She was throwing the same combination over and over again, and Pena was landing the same jab repeatedly over and over and over again. And that's something that I think we've seen in the past with Durandamy, but I chalk that up to Durandamy was a world champion kickboxer. Of course, she's a better striker than Amanda Nunes. She's the best striker in the women's UFC. But this was Julianna Pena outstriking Amanda Nunes, becoming champion. And here's the thing. Good for her. This is amazing. I'll throw two questions at you. In a rematch, we're both picking Amanda, right? And where does this rank in the biggest upsets in history?
Yeah, I mean, the fight itself is strange. I think for Amanda Nunes, she was getting tagged so often because, as ridiculous as it sounds, after the fact that, we all watched it, we saw Pena piece Amanda Nunes up on the feet. Pena's not that great at striking. They're big looping shots. Her defense isn't, her defense is wide open, but Nunes obviously is training to fight sort of conventional sort of boxers, stand-up people, whereas Pena is the way that she fights is the way that she strikes is unconventional. So they're coming from odd angles. They're hitting her with, side of the glove, not hitting her with full power. Some are hitting her with full power. She's landing an uppercut. She's landing the jab that, we always say the jab's the underutilized weapon in mixed martial arts. And I think Nunes was almost surprised by just how unconventional Pena's striking was. And I don't want to take anything away from Pena, but did Pena win the fight or did Amanda Nunes lose the fight? Because let's be honest, I think once she started to get pieced up, Nunes panicked. That smirk went off her face that we're so used to seeing, and why she didn't sort of just get on her bike a little bit and take a few steps back. She was believed too much in her power. She just wanted to walk Pena down, and Pena was game, and obviously Nunes just got absolutely, like you say, absolutely exhausted. And they also asked the question, did she quit in the fight? That rear naked choke was on for no more than 5 seconds. No hooks were in, and I think it was a mixture of exhaustion and having the rear naked choke. Nunes is a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and she's getting submitted without any hooks in. And did she take Pena seriously? I doubt it. And we heard from Dana White after the fact that they were going to face off Nunes and Kayla Harrison. So, was she looking past Pena? Most probably. In answer to your question, in the rematch, of course, I'm going to pick Amanda Nunes because I think she's good enough to make the adjustments. Sharpen up her boxing, take Pena seriously as well. And she did get taken down fairly easily, but that first round, she dominated Pena on the ground and on the feet. She dropped Pena, I think. I looked at the official stats. It didn't go down as a knockdown, but she dropped Pena twice with sort of jabs. So I think it was more of a coming together with the two women. But you could see the power differential between the two. obviously sides with Nunes. And, so in the rematch, I'd still pick Nunes, but I'd have a lot more, obviously, questions going into the rematch than beforehand. And as far as biggest upsets are concerned, I think, the MMA Sucka Instagram put out, is it the biggest upset in UFC history, Pena or Matt Serra? And it's a real difficult one because Matt Serra was cut from the UFC. He won what is essentially a reality TV show to get the shot at George St. Pierre. Did he deserve the shot? I mean, no, he didn't, of course not. But did he take his opportunity? Yes. But the thing is with the males and at the higher weight classes, fighting at 170 as opposed to 135, it only takes sort of one shot, as you saw. Matt Serra, I wouldn't say he got lucky, but he landed that shot on George St. Pierre, and there was an element of luck to it. There was nothing lucky about what Julianna Pena did, especially after getting beaten up so badly in the first round. It wasn't like Pena just caught Nunes with a big overhand right and knocked her out. She battered her in the second round, and then she implemented her game plan by closing the distance, getting her to the floor and choking her out within sort of from the clinch to the submission, I think was, under 10 or 15 seconds. She didn't have to work on the ground. Nunes just gave her back, gave her neck, didn't defend at all. And so I think, although Matt Serra's is historical for being the biggest upset in UFC history, I think Pena, just due to the fact that it wasn't a sort of one-shot drop of Nunes. Anyone at 170 pounds, if you land right on the chin, you can go out. Not everyone at 135, if you land on the chin, you can go out. And I think it's, in my opinion, it's the biggest upset of both the year and of in the UFC history.
Yeah, it's when I was putting the words together, we were getting it ready about 2 weeks ago, and I thought, let's not record it before UFC 269. And I'm glad we did, because we would have looked like asses if we didn't have this one upset of the year. It's probably the biggest upset of the year. It's easily one of the biggest upsets in UFC history. And unlike, I think a lot of the upsets that we've seen in history, in hindsight, make a lot of sense. Like I'm talking about when you have Chris Weidman and Anderson Silva. In hindsight, that makes a lot of sense. Holly Holm versus Ronda Rousey, I think, was the biggest betting upset in history. And in hindsight, it makes a lot of sense, honestly. George St. Pierre, Matt Serra still doesn't make sense in hindsight. It's still an insane moment. And I would think that this knockout is a lot closer to Matt Serra, George St. Pierre, where this is like Buster Douglas beating Mike Tyson. Like, he didn't beat Mike Tyson the second time. He got bludgeoned the second time that he fought. But at the time, this is absolutely insane. Some guy barely on a win streak who barely deserved to be there. Fight sport is absolute madness. And like you said, her boxing isn't that technical. It's not that good. It looks like Jack Slack called it wine mom boxing. Like, it looks like someone who just attends boxing classes on weekends with the flared out elbows. Elbows are just way too high up in the air. He's not really putting combinations together. But she outstruck Amanda Nunes. That is absolutely insane. And considering everyone else in the weight class, I don't think she beats Amanda Nunes. I'm not sure if she even defends the title against anyone who's the top contender. However, let's actually bring up the rankings right now. We'll see who's there.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she'll give Nunes the rematch because it's the money fight. And to be honest with Pena, she's done it now. She's won the belt. She's captured the belt. You've got the names you've got in there. Jermaine Durandamy, she obviously wants to get that one back. Now does Valentina come up again and fight and Pena to try and become the champ? She's already got that win over Pena back at, I think, 2016, 2017 maybe. And, that was a fairly routine victory for Valentina. You've got Holly Holm in there, Irene Aldana still, in and around the top. Ketlin Vieira has obviously just got the win over Miesha Tate. Mm-hmm. So, you've got these names in there that can all compete and be, I think, more competitive than Nunes with Julianna Pena. And I think Miesha Tate will be absolutely kicking herself having lost that fight to Ketlin Vieira a few weeks ago, because I think she could possibly have been next in line. She's got the name, she's got the brand, she's got the former champion sort of accolade to her, and coming back against Maren Renault, winning that one. If she would have won against Ketlin Vieira, she would have been 2-0 since her return, and it would have been a much more straightforward fight to fight Julianna Pena than it would to fight Amanda Nunes. We saw her get battered against Amanda Nunes at UFC 200, and it's it's a missed opportunity for Misha Tate, I think.
I agree with you. I think that's what Misha was working towards, is a one-time kind of comeback in her career. She was overseas working for one as vice president or something weird like that, and then coming back in the UFC. And I think she thought that same thing. Like, I got one shot at her. I got one run in me. She couldn't quite make it. But I think Misha Tate, like, I don't know. She hasn't fought amazingly for the last 2 years now, and I don't know if she beats Julianna Pena, but you got to think, if she is anything close to what her prime was. You know what's weird about Misha Tate? And I've said this in the past as well, when she was fighting like Ronda Rousey and she was fighting some other people. Misha Tate fights to the level of her opposition. So she'll eke by close decisions against everybody she's fought. And then she, like, and against top 15 opponents that she shouldn't be struggling with by any means, she's struggling with them. And then she goes and struggles against Ronda Rousey and defends armbars and defends takedowns to Ronda Rousey in Ronda's prime. She was Ronda's like main opponent. Misha does fight to the level of her opposition. She would do fine against Julianna Pena. You know what I mean? But
yeah, for sure.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, and when she won the belt against Holly Holm, she was getting battered in that fight for the majority. She was cruising to a 5-round decision loss before she choked Holly Holm out, and that just shows the dog in her that she's never going to give up over 5 rounds. And I think, did she give up against Nunes? No, she got battered on the feet and then choked out. And I think it was Nunes' time, as we've seen. Nunes has only got better since then. So if she, there was always that question probably in the back of her own mind of, if I do go on a bit of a run, she's never going to beat Nunes, but if she I think, it's a much more competitive fight, her facing Julianna Pena, but
yeah,
I think we can put that one on the back burner for now. And I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, the next fight is going to be a rematch, let's be honest. I like the way Amanda Nunes handled it to say, look, not coming out like I was injured. She just said she was off, which, everyone has their off nights, and she handled it I think she handled it really well. And at the end of the day, if she doesn't get the rematch, it is what it is. And, maybe you go down a Holly Holm route, because Holly Holm's on a bit of a tear at the moment. Irene Aldana lost to Holly Holm, Ketlin Vieira lost to Irene Aldana. So it's just very difficult at the moment. You got Jermaine Durandamy, who's still there, having, she's got the submission victory over Julianna Pena, in Pena's sort of return fight from when she had a bit of time out. And it's but then again, you said Jermaine Durandamy, it's a difficult one, because she's 1-1 in her last 2, having just lost to Amanda Nunes, but so was Julianna Pena. So
yeah,
I think,
sure.
And with the greatest respect to Jermaine Durandamy, she doesn't cross over too well to the sort of casual fan. I think she's only headlined 2 events in her past, or maybe 3, but she headlined against Holly Holm when she fought for the title, and then I think maybe she headlined against when she knocked out Aspen Ladd in 10 seconds or 15 seconds or whatever it was. But she doesn't quite, in my opinion, I don't think she quite transfers over into the mainstream. People like us know exactly who she is and know exactly how dangerous she can be, and but the casual fan, as it were, probably hasn't heard of her, to be honest.
No, I don't think she's a needle mover by any means, and the UFC hasn't done themselves any favors by. She was the weird thing with being offered the Cyborg fight and then pulling out and never accepting the Cyborg fight when they opened up featherweights kind of for Cyborg, so that someone could hold the title for Cyborg. And then the UFC did no favors in they absolutely buried her. They made sure that she was never promoted. She was never getting any favors or anything like that. And like you said, she headlined against Holly Holm, and it was a pretty boring fight, I think. And then she headlined against Aspen Ladd and got a quick knockout. But yeah, she's had a weird career. I don't think I don't know entirely what to say. Or even if she's in her physical prime, hasn't fought for over a year now. And then before that, she also took another almost full year off. But yeah, she fights sparingly. However, I think the biggest loss was the Kayla Harrison fight, like you were saying. They were negotiating in the back room. She was cage side. They were showing Kayla Harrison like on the broadcast. She's a 2-time Olympic gold medalist in judo, former training partner of Ronda Rousey. She's only the 2nd American to ever medal in judo, the first being Ronda Rousey. She was a PFL champion at 155, but she has made featherweight in the past. I don't think she can make bantamweight, and I don't think there's any reason that she needs to. I think add her to featherweight so that they can really build a division around her. But now, do you still like? Does the Amanda Nunes fight? Let's say we do it, a Kayla Harrison versus Nunes fight at featherweight. There's no wind in those sails anymore. Like I know I would be excited, but there's nothing left in those sails, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'd be excited because I like watching Kayla Harrison fight, you know.
Me too, yeah.
And she's got that equalizer of finally Nunes will fight someone at featherweight, not named Cyborg, who is her size, if not a little bit bigger. You know, she's always the bigger girl going in there against anyone at bantamweight or featherweight. But like you say, a little bit of the sort of magic around it has been lost because we've just seen her pieced up by someone who can't really strike.
Yeah.
In Julianna Pena, or rather, striking isn't her forte. And we've just seen her easily taken down against the cage, leading to the finish. How is Nunes going to deal with, unless she just focus, you know? Nunes, we saw her struggle with her cardio. Then we've seen her struggle with cardio in the past. You know, against Felicia Spencer, she didn't look great in the later rounds. And I think that was more just because, you know, she was sort of cruising to the victory. But her cardio, in my opinion, it's not great. You know, we saw her gas out against Valentina.
Yeah.
We saw her sort of cruise against Jermaine Durandamy on the ground, that was, and then cruise against Felicia Spencer. So, you know, it's the age-old question of how much do these people focus on their cardiovascular sort of game if they're just knocking people out. You know, it's like McGregor. You know, he got slightly exposed because he's knocked everybody out. He you know, he's finished all of his fights apart from the Max Holloway fight leading up to Jose Aldo, knocked Jose Aldo out, went up to face Nate Diaz, emptied his tank in the first round, gassed out in the second, and got choked out. It's pretty much the same story here. You know, Nunes slapped Pena around the octagon for the first 5 minutes. You know, knocked her down, dominated her on the floor. Didn't have anything left in the tank, you know. And coming from a team like ATT, I'm surprised that Mike Brown allowed her to sort of get in that mindset of going out. She went out there in the second to finish it. And I'm surprised Mike Brown didn't try and rein her back in, you know. Either he did, I didn't hear it on the broadcast, but either he did and she didn't listen to her coaches, which is another issue, or Mike Brown was happy for her to, you know, he believed in her power as much as she obviously believed in her power to go and, you know, trade with Pena and get it done. But I think Pena could have taken the fight to the ground at any point. You know, Nunes's strikes were obviously, you know, they were just trading blow for blow to the head, and it was I go, you go, I go, you go. And then, you know, Pena could have easily changed levels and probably got it to the ground earlier than she did. But why would you when you're piecing up the power hitting striker phenom that is Amanda Nunes? You know, keep doing what you're doing, it's working. So, and obviously we saw it did work, and she got the second round submission.
And I think it's hard to be a champion. Sorry, I just adjusted my microphone. I didn't realize I was using the bad one there for a minute, but now we're using the professional big boy microphone. I think like others have said, this is more Amanda losing than it is Julianna winning, because I think there is something to be said for every interview you go to. People are saying, you're the greatest. There's no more challengers for you. How can anyone even touch you? Every press conference, every like autograph meeting, all your coaches. And then it keeps happening in the fight. You have lame 5-round fights against Felicia Spencer where she can't do anything. You kill Megan Anderson in 8 seconds and she can't do anything. You start believing after a time that, yeah, no one can touch me. No, I am. I deserve this. Maybe you have trained. Maybe you don't focus as much, especially against Julianna Pena. Amanda Nunes was giving interviews saying, like, we need some fresh blood in this division. People want to see rivalries. There's no more challengers for me. There's no one to draw people in. That was an interview like 3 days before she got beat up. So I think there was a little case of, this is probably just her losing her. I mean, she believes her own hype. She deserves to believe her own hype. Absolutely. But I mean, this happens in fight sport. You might have one bad day. You might have one bad camp. You know, she's got a family. She's been champion for a long time. And everywhere she goes, someone is saying, like, no one can touch you. You are the greatest. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, you know, that's obviously played against her in this one. And we'll go on now to speak about the main event. But Dustin Poirier is a complete opposite. You know, I think everyone's or rather, everyone's. I don't think he believes his own hype. I think he's got that chip on his shoulder, but everyone's kind of said, he's the uncrowned champion. He's beat McGregor twice. He's gone for the second fight with McGregor for the money rather than fighting Charles for the interim bout. And ultimately, that decision's come around to bite him on the ass because he second title opportunity for the undisputed bout, second time he's been choked out by a rear naked choke. It's a shame for Dustin because he might go down as one of the better. Everyone says who's the best fighter to never win a belt, and not including the interim belt that he won. It might, he might be in the top few or top of the conversation for that because he is such an elite fighter, but he just can't get over the hill, as it were, when it comes into title fights. I don't think it's like it's not a skill differential because we saw him. He won the first round fairly easily. He dropped Charles. He definitely dropped him once, and he was on the way to dropping him again. But I think it was the little things that Charles Oliveira was doing that saw him slowly but surely wear Dustin down. He was first and he was last every single time. He was either landing with a little elbow or that teep kick to the stomach was landing over. I've watched the fight twice and he's landed it over and over and over again, and the knee to the stomach. So he's just depleting the gas tank of Dustin Poirier. We don't know what it would have been like in the fourth and late into the fifth, but they add up. You don't just take a knee or a strong teep to the body and brush it off as nothing. You can maybe take a jab to the face and it doesn't affect your cardio at all, or a leg kick, it doesn't affect your cardio, but a teep to the body is going to, of course, affect your cardio. And Charles didn't really let Dustin get into his rhythm because he was constantly putting something in his face. That first round, the output by both men, Dustin outlanded Charles Oliveira, but even so, like the output of Charles Oliveira just to keep something in Dustin's face, whether it was a jab, it was an elbow, it was a jumping knee, even when he was hurt, but you've always got that threat of him going for the takedown that we saw in the second round. And I thought it was a really good performance by Charles Oliveira, and I think it's slightly a missed opportunity by Dustin Poirier.
Yeah, and it's very hard because I'm such a big fan of both men. I think we all are major fans of both men, that both men represent the best of mixed martial arts, the best of the UFC, with where they came from in their careers, where they are today, and how much better they've gone. They really do represent, this is what martial arts is all about. This is what combat sports is at its very peak. So it's hard to see either of them lose. And Dustin Poirier, at this point in his career, has fought for a title over 6 rounds and has won 1 round. And he certainly showed that he had capabilities in that round. He scored knockdowns in that round officially. He was controlling the entire round. Charles Oliveira, I think I mentioned in the UFC 262 breakdown in that he doesn't always need to get a takedown. He actually doesn't have that many takedowns in the UFC, and his takedowns are kind of not that good. He doesn't need them. He just climbs on guys. He's done this kind of stuff before where he doesn't need the takedown. He had top control for an entire round and officially never got a takedown. He got a submission in round 3, never got a takedown. This guy has gotten better before our eyes. We've seen him float away. Like, he's got punched by Cub Swanson and Max Holloway, and he kind of floated away like a beach ball on the beach, and he just kind of floated off. He's like, I don't want to do this anymore. And then now he's clearly tough. He's getting dropped in every fight, and it doesn't matter. He's still coming back and winning in every single fight. He represents the best of mixed martial arts. It is absolutely incredible to see how far this guy has come. He's got great technical stand-up. He's got incredible technical jiu-jitsu. I can't say enough good things about this guy. I'm sad for Dustin Poirier because I think at this point it's clear he's never going to get that title in his career. The other guys who've never held the UFC title but were maybe the best of the best, Alistair Overeem, Chael Sonnen, Dan Henderson never held the UFC title, amazingly. Yoel Romero was as close as you could be a couple of times. Yeah, Dustin is right in that kind of top 3 mix, isn't he? But yeah, Charles Oliveira, super happy for him. Next, he's going to fight the clear #1 contender in Justin Gaethje. Really excited for this fight. I was kind of leaning towards Gaethje for every time I thought about this fight. I don't think I've picked Charles to win many fights, but at this point, honestly, they're pretty close in stand-up. Justin is better at stand-up. But on the ground, it's going to be like another world. If Charles, he's going to get knocked down. If he can survive getting kicked and punched a bunch, he submits him easily, I think. I think that's an easy win for Charles Oliveira. What do you think of that fight? And then people have talked about Khabib being the GOAT. I think if Charles beats Justin Gaethje, he's probably got a better record than I don't know. Maybe I'm saying the wrong thing here, but at lightweight, I think his wins are better. Kevin Lee is a better win than Ally Akinta. I think Michael Chandler is a better win than like some of those guys that Habib was fighting. But
McGregor,
yeah. What do you think of that? Is that
especially
fair?
yeah, especially because I understand what you mean. I was just looking down Dustin Poirier's record, and it hasn't aged all that well. Max Holloway is a brilliant win, but that's at lightweight, and Max Holloway is not a lightweight, and he only went up to lightweight. He just didn't cut weight. He didn't put himself in that lightweight frame. He obviously then lost to Khabib. Dan Hooker, that win is a good win, but it hasn't aged too well because he then lost to Chandler, then he lost to Islam Makhachev, and now he's going back down in weight. The two wins against Conor McGregor, they are what they are. McGregor's looked washed in those two, and now Charles Oliveira he's lost to him. But like you say, Charles Oliveira's record, he got the fight against Tony Ferguson and dominated it, which Khabib wasn't able to do. He wasn't able to even get the fight made in the end. Or sorry, the fight was made, it never went ahead. Like you say, the win over Kevin Lee.
It was certainly made a bunch of times.
Just a few, yeah. And the win over Kevin Lee, the win over Michael Chandler, the manner that he's finishing these guys, And it's not to say that Khabib isn't the GOAT because he's not finishing guys, but it's a much more dominant, Michael Johnson via Kimura is good, but Michael Johnson is what he is. Edson Barboza by decision, that was a dominant decision, but we've seen now on reflection, if you put pressure on Edson Barboza, he crumbles.
Yes.
Iaquinta took the fight on 24 hours notice, and Khabib wasn't even able to get him out of there, And yes, he was preparing for a fight. Of course, his cardio is going to be there, but it's a completely different matchup, And Khabib wasn't able to get him out there. He then defeated McGregor, a terrible stylistic matchup for McGregor. He's never been good on the ground, and Khabib even dropped him in that one because he was so sort of concerned. I believe that when he dropped him with the big overhand right, it was that McGregor was too concerned about being taken down, and Khabib obviously landed the big overhand. Then you've got the victories against Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje. Both of them have aged very well. But
yes,
if you look at sort of Khabib's obviously 29-0 now, but he was fighting guy Pat Healy, Darrell Horcher, Michael Johnson, whereas you've got Charles Oliveira's fighting guys, Clay Guida, Jim Miller, Nick Lenz, Kevin Lee, Tony Ferguson. I can agree with what you say, but I think the way that people see it, especially the casual fans, are Khabib is 29-0.
Yeah.
Charles Oliveira has got 8 losses, some by submission, some by knockout, some by decision.
Yeah.
So I think to be honest, I think that it's one of those where people are just gonna look at. But if you look at the names that Charles Oliveira's lost to: Jim Miller, Donald Cerrone, Cub Swanson, Frankie Edgar, Max Holloway, Pettis, Ricardo Lamas, and Paul Felder.
Not bad, not terrible.
They're all top 10 guys in the. I mean, most of them. You got former champions: Max Holloway, Frankie Edgar. You got title challengers: Cub Swanson. You got Pettis in there, Ricardo Lamas. Donald Cerrone challenged for a title. Jim Miller is just. That was back in 2010 when Jim Miller was just, killing the game, really. He was at the time, Jim Miller was on a 6-fight win streak when he faced Charles Oliveira, and he submitted Charles Oliveira. So these are good guys to get wins over if you're Charles Oliveira. And I think the strength of schedule for Charles Oliveira is probably stronger than it was for Khabib, but it's the O for Khabib that sort of probably cements it for many people's minds.
I agree with you. I very much co-sign with. I think if he beats Justin, he probably has a better lightweight legacy. However, you can't argue with Khabib was undefeated. If we say he was fighting bottom 20 guys, he wasn't competing with them. He was dominating guys. Even the top 5 guys that he was beating, he beat Dustin more dominantly. He dominated Justin Gaethje. He wasn't, once he got the title, he wasn't competing with these guys at all. So that is a feather, certainly in Khabib's cap. Is he the greatest of all time? No, but that's only because you and I have been watching the sport for so long and we're snobs about it, and we know a lot more than other people. However, let's talk about, does Charles get past Justin Gaethje? This is a tough fight for him. For a guy who gets hit in every fight, for a guy who gets knocked down in every fight, Justin Gaethje is a dangerous opponent. He's great at the kick, low kick. He's good at the mid thigh kick. He's good at the top punching. He's good at body punching. He's strong in every area. His counter wrestling is not great, but Justin Gaethje is a dangerous opponent for anyone in the UFC.
Yeah, I think if we go back to the new old Justin Gaethje, as it were, we sort of reverted back to type against Michael Chandler, just a stand and bang, and I'll hit you with 2, or you hit me with 3, I'll hit you with 3, you hit me with 2.
Yes.
And I almost think that he kind of bought into the pre-fight hype. If we go back to the sort of Donald Cerrone or Edson Barboza, the Tony Ferguson sort of version of Justin Gaethje, I think that version of Justin Gaethje's got a much easier path to victory than against Charles Oliveira than the stand and bang, because when he does stand and bang, he does happen to sort of dip his head, which, and Charles loves to throw a flying knee. He's going to be open to that.
That's a good point. Didn't think of that one. Yeah.
But at the end of the day as well, you've got to remember that, in my opinion, Charles Oliveira is still just a lazy featherweight. If you looked at the 2 guys in there on Saturday night, Dustin Poirier is huge. Charles Oliveira's got a slender frame. He's not a big guy.
The guy's dying to make featherweight, and he doesn't in most of his featherweight fights.
Exactly.
But I think if he's safely cut, he changed camps. Like, he changed from whatever like his childhood friend was to Shute box. Maybe he can actually make that cut safely and effectively now. Maybe you're right.
Okay, maybe he's not. I think he's a 150 fighter, because he just looks undersized against anyone that he faces. He looked undersized against Dustin.
Yeah.
Michael Chandler, although he was shorter, he looked a lot bigger and a lot stronger than him. But he's got. With that being said, he's got the strength to clearly to fight with these guys in the clinch. He dominated Justin in the clinch. He was constantly hitting Dustin with shots, and I think he could do the same against Justin Gaethje. And I think Gaethje's got to revert back to the more relaxed picking his shot style, and if Charles Oliveira allows him to, because Charles Oliveira on Saturday night came straight out right in Dustin Poirier's face and brought the fight to him, and clearly it waned on Justin. And that second round was, I mean, I don't know the official scorecards, but it was quite close to a 10-8. Dustin didn't manage to get anything off, so it was a good performance. But I think there's definitely openings for both men when he faces Justin Gaethje next year.
I think so. I'm excited for that fight because I love a Justin Gaethje fight, love a Charles Oliveira fight. I'm really excited for that one. But yeah, I think I will be picking Charles in that one for maybe the first time in that man's career. I can't tell. I can't remember if I picked him against Chandler. I called the left hook and I felt like vindicated forever. And that's the one like I got. It's the one I pat myself on the back a lot about spotting the left hook, but it's very obvious when you like Chandler gets caught by left hooks all the time. Like, it wasn't that big of a deal. And Oliveira throws so many left hooks. But I think Oliveira does win that fight. I think that's a square one. I'm actually going to pick him. Jeff Neal and Santiago Ponzinibbio. Do you want to mention anything? No one really likes this fight.
It was slightly confused as to why it was where it was on the card. You've got Sean O'Malley, knockout artist, Cody Garbrandt. Although he is a knockout artist, he got knocked out. Or, Chinny Cody Garbrandt. Then you've got this fight. I would have probably put the Dan Ige, Josh Emmett fight, because those guys both always come to fight where, on the sort of third fight down on the main card. But, it's a good win for Jeff Neal to get back in there. Ponzinibbio hasn't looked the same since he took all that time out. He returned against Li Jingliang, was knocked out. He had that war with Miguel Bieza, and now this one. He was loading up Ponzinibbio on every single shot that he threw. And, against Jeff Neal, he simply just took that step back, and avoided the shot and came back with a few of his own. But I think it's a bit of a sleeper fight on the card, to be honest. It doesn't really do much for Jeff Neal. It doesn't really do much for Santiago. They just stay where they are in the division.
Yeah, you really did need to put a stamp on that fight because both guys are kind of at the gate in terms of like maybe they're getting cut in the next little while, but on a couple of wins, either of these guys can be in title contention. You need to really put a stamp on this fight, and they kind of ground it out. Kai Kara France. Oh, just how good did this one taste? I don't know. It's Cody Garbrandt. He was made to beat Dominick Cruz, but he can't do anything else. That's all he can do is beat Dominick Cruz. Kai Kara-France came out aggressive. He came out, spotted every single shot that was available for him. This was, as we said before the fight, both of us picked Kai Kara and said this was a coming out party for Kai Kara-France, a guy who can control with the jab, can spot those really good opportunities when he's ducking in. And he absolutely slaughtered Cody Garbrandt. Cody Garbrandt's flaws, as previously mentioned, this one is so validating. It's not because he's it's not because of his weight. It's because of his style. He does the same thing every fight. He fights with absolutely no brain. And for the last few fights, this guy went from undefeated to not winning over the last few years. What can you say about the future of Kai Kara-France and the future of Cody Garbrandt?
Yeah, I mean, I think as soon as he was kind of exposed against T.J. Dillashaw for staying in the pocket too long,
yeah,
that's it. You know, if Dominick Cruz would have probably stayed in the pocket with him, although he got dropped when he was in the pocket with Cody, I don't think he was committing to every shot as much as he maybe should have. And he could have even got the victory against Cody if he would have stayed in the pocket, because we know that's Cody's kryptonite. But like you say, we both picked Kara-France on the podcast. And then I changed my decision to Cody Garbrandt. I was thinking, you know, new weight class. Yeah, it's awful. New weight class, heavier hitter, you know. But he was looking ahead. He was looking ahead at the Sean O'Malley fight, and even when he was dropped, I thought Cody handled it really well. You know, although he beckoned Kara-France on and then switched up and hit the double leg, but he had no desire to try and just hold on to Kara-France. Whether, you know, I've only watched the fight once, but I'll have to rewatch it to see how the sequence happened that he got straight back up to his feet. But, you know, he called him on as in, you know, Cody clearly knows, and if he doesn't, I need to coach him, you need to coach him, that he stays in the pocket too long and he shouldn't be exchanging with people. If his coaches haven't told him that, I'd be amazed, you know. And so he called Kara-France on to sort of say, look, I know this is my flaw, let's exchange. But he instantly shot the double leg and got Kara-France to the ground. Really good tactic, you know, clearly hurt. Call him on, knowing that Kara-France isn't going to sort of try and take him down, goes for the double leg. Now, just hold him on the ground. Just hold him on. Even if you get stood up in a minute's time, you've had that minute where all you're doing really is trying to control your opponent and get your senses back. But now that Cody, you know, he's 5-1 in his last 6 fights.
That's not good.
And he's been knocked out badly in 4 of the 5. 4 of the 5. All of his knockouts have been bad ones. You know, these aren't sort of TKOs. These are knockouts where he's been knocked down multiple times and blasted when he's on the floor. And I really don't know what's next for him. You know, I think his star power is now gone. You know, he's always got that former champion from unranked to world champion in a year. No one can say that away from him. But with that being said, if you're getting knocked out by bantamweights, that's fair enough. But when you go down in weight and you're still getting knocked out, and none of the shots that he landed on Kara-France really seemed to affect Kara-France. So maybe his power, you know, I wrote a preview article. There were so many questions going into it. How will the weight cut affect him? We don't really know if it deteriorated his chin, because let's be honest, he didn't have the best chin at 135 pounds. And, you know, will his power transfer down? It appears that it didn't, because he wasn't able to hurt Kara-France. And it was a patient start to both. And then once Kara-France caught him, he went in, and, you know, he didn't let up. And, you know, Kara-France in 2021, you know, I think he's 2-0 with 2 knockouts over Bontorin and now former champion in Cody Garbrandt. And
pretty good.
You know, let's be honest, 2 performance of the night bonuses as well for Kara-France. And for Cody, I really don't know what's next. Whether he stays down at 125, I'm not really sure. You know, it's difficult because, you know, he's without a win at 125, and it's not like with Jose Aldo where there's, you know, he narrowly lost his bantamweight debut, Jose Aldo, to Marlon Moraes. Cody decisively lost his flyweight debut, and, you know, I think a fight against, if he is going to stay down there, a Manel Cape is that excites me. And if he goes back up to 135 pounds, just looking at the rankings now, he's not even ranked in the top 15 anymore at bantamweight. Whether he had to be removed because he went and fought down at flyweight, I'm not sure. But Does he beat a Song Yadong? Probably not. Does he beat a Sean O'Malley? Not after the weekend. A
Oh,
Sun Sao, obviously he's beaten, but a Sun Sao's on the way down. Does he beat a Frankie Edgar? I think that'd be a good fight. Pedro Munoz, he lost to. I think a fight against Marlon Moraes would make sense, but a fight against Marlon Vera would make sense. But these are all guys that aren't going to fight Cody Garbrandt because he's not ranked in the top 15.
yeah.
But he's got the
Yeah.
name behind him. It's a difficult one because I mean, I know I can understand why people don't like him. I think he's quite a likable guy. He's got a nice family, he's got a good story, but I don't want to sound too savage, but he's not a very good mixed martial artist if he's making the same mistakes over and over and over and over and over again. We
Yeah, I
saw
know.
a great mixed martial artist, Stipe Miocic, fought Daniel Cormier, lost, came back, made the adjustments, beat him, made the adjustments even further and beat him again. He made the adjustments in fight to, instead of headhunting, go down to the body in the second fight.
Yep.
That's an adjustment in the fight. Cody isn't making these adjustments over a series of years. If we look at when Cody first lost, his first loss to TJ Dillashaw was in 2017 because he stayed in the pocket for too long. Almost a year later, he then lost in 2018 to Dillashaw because he stayed in the pocket for too long.
Yes.
6 or 7 months later against Pedro Munoz, stayed in the pocket too long, lost. Then he took over a year out and returned against Rafael Sunsao with a new team, Mark Henry, got the big knockout. And we're thinking, right, now this is a new Cody Garbrandt. He's learned from his mistakes. He's a lot more patient. He barely threw any shots in that fight. And then he goes into against Rob Font and was just outclassed. And then he goes in against Cara France and he stayed in the pocket for too long. It's if you can't learn from your mistakes, you're never going to be an elite mixed martial artist, in my opinion. And like with Kevin Lee, does he, if he gets cut from the UFC, does he go over to Bellator? But they've just announced that bantamweight tournament last week or the week before last, and there are some tough matchups for him in there. Horiguchi beats him. Pettis probably beats him. Patchy Mix is a difficult fight because he's long and rangy like Rob Font. James Gallagher's got the ground game to maybe cause him problems. That's just a few of the guys in that. Juan Archuleta is a difficult fight for him because he can bang as well. It's not easy for Cody Garbrandt. Does he go into the sort of celebrity boxing game, as it were? But
that would be a great fit. I think he's too small for anyone.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. The Jake Paul's way up at around 190 odd pounds.
Not
Cody's
close.
140 walking around. He's just made 125 at the weekend, and he didn't blow up. Yes, he was the bigger man against Cara France, but he didn't blow up to the point where he sort of, he looked weight classes apart. He looked like the bigger man, but they still both look like flyweights. So I'm really not sure what happens with Cody Garbrandt. I'm every year I do a outlandish predictions for 2020. For example, it'll be 2022. I can't see him being included in any of my outlandish predictions, becoming world champion or anything crazy like that, because I just don't see it happening.
No, and it's too bad. I don't know what the future holds for the guy. I think the UFC would hang on to him because, like you said, he's got a name behind him. If you beat him, it does have name value. That we're knockout over Rafael Sunsao is maybe the best of 2020. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know what to do with the kid, and I feel bad for him because he's not learning what he needs to learn. He's not being patient when he needs to be patient. I don't know if that Sunsao win also helped his career because he committed the same mistakes in that win, but it led to victory in that case. So I think that kind of drilled in his brain that like it's okay if I do this because I can still win. No, that's not the case, Cody. And I don't know what the future holds for him. He's clearly a very good talent, but it's almost like he needs to coach himself and kind of thing of like if he saw someone else making those mistakes, he would have coached them. He would have said, stop doing that. But he's not doing it for himself. And I think the guy just likes to bang. So what else can you say about UFC 269? Dominick Cruz has a close fight and ends up winning a decision against Pedro Munoz. He got dropped in the first round a couple of times, was nearly finished a couple of times, still came back throwing multiple punch combinations, was doing well off the leg kick. Good job, Dominick Cruz. He's doing really well in his career, isn't he? He's having this little resurgence. He's not made of paper mache as much anymore. He's having fewer injuries. I don't know if he can crack into the top 5, but I think he can hang out in the top 10, no problem. But I don't know what the future holds. People are saying Aldo. I would love that fight. Maybe there's something out there. I don't want to see either lose is the thing. what can you say about Dominick Cruz? Just got to win this weekend.
Yeah, I think after the first round, there was no chance that Dominick Cruz was winning that fight. He was dropped and he sort of face planted at one point as well. And it's he's only been finished once in his career. Previously, he went 25 minutes with Cody Garbrandt despite being dropped multiple times. Yeah. He was finished obviously by Henry Cejudo. Yep. Dropped in the first round here, and it was a heavy knockdown by Pedro Munoz, but he rallied. It was vintage Dominick Cruz. He got on his bike. He was in that in and out movement, and he was doing the things that we're used to Dominick Cruz doing, is single shots, and then when he does throw a combination, they're spiteful combinations with a lot of power. He throws combinations to hurt, and at the end of the day, would I like to see the Jose Aldo fight? The historian in me wants to see that fight. Yeah. But I think Jose Aldo versus TJ Dillashaw fight is more likely. It probably sort of May time in Brazil if they go back, if coronavirus allows. I'm sure they'll probably revisit Brazil, and that could be a 5-round co-main event.
True, that would be a good one.
A Sean O'Malley fight for me. Sean O'Malley. Everyone was saying on the broadcast, finally, he's got this test against Ryan Piver. Sorry,
that's a hype machine build right there. This was such a setup for Sean.
With the greatest respect to Piver, he's a flyweight. He lost to Cara France, he lost to Bontarin, he beat Mark De La Rosa. He then missed weight in his next fight, and then he returned to bantamweight and defeated Kyler Phillips.
Yeah.
And everyone's going on like, he's this brilliant prospect. I like Piver a lot. I think he's very good, but the size difference between the two guys in there was ridiculous. And I looked at the rankings earlier, and Sean O'Malley's now ranked 13th. But I think fights around him are tough fights, If he fights down Song Yadong or Cody Stamann, tough fights. Cody Stamann could put a pace on him and we'll take him down. Song Yadong is probably a heavier hitter than anyone Sean O'Malley's faced. And, Sean O'Malley's not going to finish Song Yadong. Maybe they give him a Rafael Sunsao as another sort of setup because he's on his way out.
That's kind of the typical of like, you got to beat Rafael. He is maybe the best gatekeeper of like, exactly. He's so consistent. He's been a gatekeeper for like 5 years now. So yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And the only person he's fought in the top 15 is Marlon Vera, who's ranked number 8. And he was knocked out. You can say he had an injury, but he was knocked out in that fight. You've got to ask the questions about the ranking that Marlon Moraes has gone up one ranking this week. Hasn't won a fight in as long as I can remember, but it is what it is. But, Sean O'Malley impressed, and I think Sean O'Malley versus Dominick Cruz fight makes a lot of sense, because like we say about Cody Garbrandt, Sean O'Malley's not really learning from his mistakes. Sean O'Malley was hit with a lot of leg kicks against Piver again.
Yep.
And he wasn't really checking them. He was sliding slightly out of the way, but against, no disrespect, but against a better fighter, they're going to set the leg kick up with strikes beforehand and not just throw blind kicks, which in turn would lead to them O'Malley covering up and not being able to have so much spring back to defend the leg kick. And, do I think Sean O'Malley will be a champion? I don't. As long as
I don't.
You've got Corey Sandhagen, Petr Yan, Merab Devashvili, Rob Font, Jose Aldo, as long as they're all still around, Marlon Vera, Sean O'Malley, in my opinion, won't be a champion because I think all of those guys beat him. But it's the second wave, he's still young, so it's the second wave of bantamweights. If he can sort of outlast these guys and hang in and around the top 5, top 3, and then go on to challenge for a belt once these guys are sort of over the hill and gone, there's a potential. But he's massively skilled, but I just don't think he's got the sort of MMA skill, as it were, to compete at the highest level.
What's wild about bantamweight as well? The UFC's top 15 bantamweight still probably the best division right now in the UFC. If you add in Bellator's bantamweight, holy crap, this division's good. Add in Ryzen's bantamweight, add in One Championship's bantamweight. This division is good across the world. Like, we're talking about a top 40 where any of those guys in the top 40 could arguably compete in the top 5. It is absolutely madness. And I don't think Sugar Sean O'Malley is the future of that division. He is a good striker and does some crafty things when he is striking as well. He does some like good like stance switching to off position kind of striking. He's a little bit different with how he strikes. But yeah, his counter work, his defensive work, what I mean to say, I don't think his wrestling is going to be that good on the counter side. If you really put a lot of pressure on him, even the last guy that he dominated, who was making his UFC debut, I forget the gentleman's name. Matinho. He was struggling against Matinho just because Matinho kept switching stance, and he didn't entirely know what to do about that. And he still landed 300 punches that fight. I don't think he's the future, but good win on this card. Dominick Cruz fight, sure, that sounds like a lot of fun. I think Cruz can win that fight, but I don't think it's easy for Dominick Cruz. He might just get knocked out. Anything else you want to say on UFC 269, or do you want to throw something on Lomachenko before we close up the show?
Could wax lyrical about Lomachenko for the next hour and a half.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we'll jump straight into that. I mean, the performance. I wrote a preview for it on the site, and you could sort of tell by the vibe of the preview that I was picking Lomachenko, but wow, I didn't pick him to win that easily. You know, he dropped Commey multiple times. He was pleading with Commey's corner to stop it at the end of, I can't remember what round it was, but with about 5 seconds to go left in the round, he just told Commey to go back to his corner, and Lomachenko walked away. I watched it back this morning, or I watched the majority of it back this morning. He's got the best movement in combat sports. We talk about sort of, maybe like a Stephen Thompson with his in and out style in the UFC, or, we've got sort of like the James Gallaghers in Bellator, who have the wide karate stance, or the MVPs who have the in and out style.
That's true.
Lomachenko's style isn't in and out. It's in, current angle, and out. Just with MVP, when he comes in and out, if he bounces in, he's into range, and he bounces out and he's all the way out of range, where he can't hit his opponent and his opponent can't hit him. With Lomachenko, he's in range and he bounces out so that his opponent can't hit him, but he's already setting up his next counter. Lomachenko, it's his footwork on Saturday night against Richard Commey was phenomenal. And I wrote in the preview, not last weekend, the weekend before, we had Devin Haney defend his bout. Mm-hmm. Boring performance. He could have put his foot down and he didn't. We had Gervonta Davis not be able to get his opponent out of there in Cruz, and none of those guys grabbed the ball by the horns after George Kambosos Jr. did what he did to Teofimo Lopez.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Ryan Garcia's out on the sidelines at the moment. Teofimo Lopez isn't looking like he's going to get a rematch. Lomachenko just grabbed the ball by the horns and said, essentially said to Kambosos, look, I'm next. That performance against Richard Commey, I'm next. He's gone about it the right way. He lost the bouts to Teo last year, I think it was, and he's already gone. He's got a knockout victory, he could have finished Commey. I think he just personally decided not to finish Commey, although he could have. Phenomenal performance by Lomachenko, and if I'm George Kambosos, I'm calling Devin Haney, I'm calling Gervonta Davis and saying, give me more money and I'll fight one of you two. I don't want to fight. I don't want a piece of Lomachenko because I want to hold these bouts for more than one defense. Not that Kambosos Jr., would just run through Devin Haney and Gervonta Davis, but without a doubt, Lomachenko is the most difficult puzzle to solve out of all of those men. And the reason that Kambosos Jr. beat Teo so well is Teo, A, didn't take him seriously, I don't think, and B, Kambosos stayed and he was first, last, and he was able to land some in the middle of the combinations, whereas you're not going to be able to land on Lomachenko. And I said in my preview, Commey's got to throw, he can't throw ones and twos because Loma will duck and dive under the ones and twos. He's got to land 4, 5, 6, and he tried, but he just couldn't. It was Lomachenko 101. I think that she's shown that Ukrainian dance has obviously paid dividends later on in life, and yeah, it's just a phenomenal performance by Lomachenko.
In the future, we have to talk about it. Like you said, in in the frame of who is he fighting next. And we are living in a George Kambosos world. I think that's the right fight to make. I think that has the name value written all over it. I think they were trying to set up the Teofimo Lopez fight by having these guys fighting it like 2 weeks apart. They're trying to set it up for a big payday in 2021, and Kambosos got in the way. Can Kambosos emulate the tactical footwork style that Lopez used to beat Lomachenko? Or is it a foregone conclusion? Vasyl, like Lopez was just keeping the belt warm for Lomachenko to find his way back.
I think, yeah, it's the latter, I'm afraid. You know, I think Loma entered that fight with injuries, and usually I don't like it when people come out and say, oh, you know, I was injured going into the fight, that's why I lost. But we've seen him now twice since that Teo loss, and he's looked better than he has before. You know, he looked better than he did in the Rigondeaux fight, and he caused Rigondeaux to retire on his stool. He looked better than he did against Crawler. He looked better than he did against Campbell. He's getting better when after he's lost the belt, which is amazing. And you know, with the greatest respect to Kambosos, I don't think that he can emulate what Teo did, and I don't even think that Teo could emulate what Teo did the first time around. I think if they fought again, I'd be picking Lomachenko. You know, I can't see how any of these guys beat Lomachenko. They haven't got that. Other than maybe Gervonta Davis, they haven't got the equalizer. You know, Teo has clearly got the power to cause anyone problems, but he wasn't able to get Loma out of there, and he lost to Kambosos. Devin Haney is, unless he puts his foot on the gas, he doesn't beat Lomachenko because he hasn't got that power. Gervonta Davis could knock Lomachenko out, but Gervonta is very much, you know, a power hitter, whereas Lomachenko is never going to be caught with a power shot. Really, realistically, he's not going to be caught with a power shot by someone like Davis, who isn't the best boxer in the world. Loma's just too smart, and you know, I think it's going to reflect when we see Kambosos face Loma next year, probably in Australia. If travel restrictions allow, Loma will run through him, in my opinion. No, there's no disrespect to Kambosos Jr. I just think that's the ability of Lomachenko.
Yeah, I can't help but agree with you. Let's wrap up the show, and then we got our year-end awards to do right away here. So, folks, my name is Tim Wheaton, joined as always by Frazer Crone. We are the MMA Sucka crew on the MMA Sucka podcast. Thanks so much for joining us. You can catch us probably next week, or we'll figure out a schedule for our year-end awards, and the year-end awards for the website are going to be a separate thing. You can find more of us, the Twitter links, and et cetera, will be down below in the description. Frazer, last word here. Tell the folks where they can find more of you and what you got going on this week.
Yeah, so we've got a couple of bits out on the website. Obviously, it's sort of winding down for Christmas now, but as I mentioned earlier on in the podcast, I do an end of year awards. We're doing an end of year awards pod after this. I do outlandish predictions for the year every year in January, and then I revisit them in December. Off the top of my head, the only one I can remember at the moment was that Leon Edwards would get cut by the UFC and fight on the same Bellator card as his brother, which it was maybe trending that way before he fought Bilal Muhammad, but obviously he's in talks with Kamaru Usman over a title fight, so that one didn't quite hit the money, to be honest. But
you're close though. Yeah. That's a pretty good prediction, actually.
So I'll be dropping revisiting my picks maybe next week, just in time for Christmas, to everyone to have a good laugh at me as how wrong I was in a lot of my picks. But yeah, you can find more of both of us at MMASucka.com. Tim's really active on the site, so yeah, check it out.
All right, we'll see you folks next week.